the book at all last week, so I started it after the meeting. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm actually listening to it because I wanted to start it right away, so I didn't have time for it to come to my house. And when you're listening to it, you hear the like nagging, teenager or whatever talking. I kind of like that because I actually see myself in some of that stuff too, as he, is talking of like, that's ridiculous. What do you mean? But let me go through my notes. I love the fact that which, many books and many podcasts, that I've read always talk about this, but it's great always to be reminded that it's not, it has nothing to do with your past, that you can really, do whatever you want in life. And it is true. Now, I find a little bit hard when he was talking about like, that trauma doesn't exist, yada, yada. But I mean, it's really what you want to make um, out of life. Um, I think I'll be happier if I was like him, or so that means you're not happy right now. I like that when he said something like, I think I'll be happier if I was more like that person. And I lo love how he said, well, what, you're not happy right now? That means you're miserable. So how people are always thinking that it's always better. Like if this happens, my life will be better. If this happens, my life, will be better. Again, he said, I love this. It's not important what one is born with, but what we make with that equipment. And it is true. Like you see it all the time. There's another book that I read a while back that's Talent is Overrated. If anyone's ever read that book, but it was great because he was talking about like how people just assume that like geniuses like Mozart or like, very talented people, like you're just born with it or whatever. Some people maybe have talent, but a lot of people is really you actually cultivate it and you actually make it happen. Whether it's a talent in music and sports or in business or in anything like that. Um, and then it says, no matter what has happened in the past, it should have no say in how your life will be in the future. You're the only one that determines what happened. Again, saying all that stuff. I found it really interesting when he was talking about getting angry and how when people are angry, and that it's something that I am trying to work myself, specifically with my daughter. He was talking about is just poor communication skills. Like that's like when people are angry, when people yell or people whatever, that it's just you just don't know how to communicate yourself. So then he said anger is a tool and a way to achieve a goal. It's a form of communication. So it's a poor, in my opinion, communication. And I tried. I'm learning, with therapists, and believe it or not, with ChatGPT. Sometimes when I'm like, and I just want to like scream at her, like I say, this is what I want to say. How can I say it better, like more effectively? And like it tells me, like it's great. He's like, well, telling her that sounds really threatening and she might, yell back at you. So maybe you should try it in this other way, which is the same, but it just communicates better. And then, yeah, it says irrational people don't lose their temper. It's just that they don't know how to use any other tool to communicate. And so, and then what I loved is when he was talking about freedom. And I know I said it earlier. It says you get freedom when you're disliked by someone because that means that you're doing you no matter what other people think. So I do. I like this. I think that as I've gotten older, I am like a good example of this. Or I honestly, right now, don't care. I don't give anything about what other people say. At that point in my life, I was never always like that. I think that I'm very unconventional. No, I'm not 50 yet, and it already hit. So I think I'm 47, so I'm still not 50. But I don't know. I think after 40, but definitely the higher 40s, like I really don't. And I think you get to a point where I've always been, and I'm still super social, but I was the kind of person that I needed to be out. I needed to have lots of friends. I needed to, I mean, not that I needed, but I mean, I still love it. I'm still a very social person. But for the first time, my husband's complete opposite, right? So he was the person who, like, if he stayed in and did nothing, he would be fine. I'd be like, no, we have to plan. We have to go out. We have to. And now I'm the opposite. Now I'm like, unless it's someone that I absolutely like, really want, like, it's not just hanging out with someone just because. Like, I rather stay home and read a book or watch a movie, and I'm fine with it. And so I don't. need to be liked, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. And I don't feel like I was looking to be liked, but it's more of, I guess, society and how it is. And so I don't know, I really like it. And I think that part of like that it was talking about freedom, it definitely goes with everything. Like when I left the hospital and people were telling me I was crazy, when I do network marketing and everybody tells me I'm nuts. It's to a point in your life that no matter what you're doing, you can just blow everyone off and say, this is me and I don't care. And then you feel better. You feel relieved. So I really like that.
That's
And
awesome. I'm going to go next if you guys don't mind. I loved what you said, Catherine, about the anger part. And it had said in there that people use anger to make somebody else submit. Because when you're yelling over somebody, that you just want them to submit to the way of your thinking. So I loved what you brought all about that. And I'll just add one more thing, just in case this guy doesn't want to hang out here. I loved what he talked about relationships too, because I think that when you're in a relationship of any sort, the fear of being disliked is hard, but he said that the love part, he said relationships in which people restrict each other eventually fall apart. And I thought that was really beautiful. I think that in any relationship, um, if you uh, restrict another person, it's going to fall apart. And then he went on to say that, and this goes with that dislike part, that really you have an agenda when you end up disliking somebody. And when I was reading that, I read it as someone towards me, not me towards someone else. And it's really true. When someone decides that they don't want to like you anymore, they're going to find everything about you that's really yucky according to their standards. And you can't change that. So I love like the idea that at some point, I love what Arlene said in the chat about age. And yes, it does come with age. But I think girls, I don't know about anybody else on this chat, but I think we have like a more like um a need to be liked in a way that if girls start talking about it, you're like, oh, come on, it kind of hurts your heart a little bit. Guys, maybe not the same way, but if someone decides that they're going to dislike you, they're going to find a way anyway. So there's nothing you can do. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to add today.
I'll run with this. Um, I've absolutely come to a particular place where I despise the young man. I find his questions, I find his, you're, I sit there. I mean, I picked it up on audiobook, and as I was driving last week to from here to San Francisco, I was just sitting there thinking, can't you ask questions in a more scholarly way? Do you have to be so impetuous? I mean, it's just, lay it down, bro. But anyway, other than that, absolutely love the book. And what I find that was really that just drilled in really tight. It was like finding the right drill bit for the specific little hole that you need to do whatever. Sorry for that analogy. Um, but it hit. And he was talking about our use of words. And, the questions were being set up by the young man, and he was the student. And as he's setting it up, he's saying, are you telling me? Are you seriously telling me that because I am he's asking in a rhetorical Socratic way, that because I came from, because I was, and because on the yellow brick road, there was this calm that came, and I could actually feel the calm coming in because I'm getting a little hyped up with all the questions as I'm driving through the mountains. And I'm sitting, and then all of a sudden, you hear the guru say, yes, indeed, that is exactly what I'm saying. And he's speaking exactly in terms of having an outburst or saying something that maybe you didn't want to say, or you used some flourishing language. And particularly either with the F word or some other phrasing. And I really thought about that. And not that I have a massive issue with it, but just being real, there are trigger points. And so I sat back after the guru was done with his narrative. And by now I'm out of the mountains and I'm driving through the Silicon Valley. I'm sitting there going, I'll be dipped in orange colored sugarless jello here. You do that, Ron. You actually do get triggered. Let's be real, man. Come on. And what was it? Maybe there was something back in the day, 65 plus years ago or, whatever, that, I said, I remember going to my room and pounding my pillow. And, mom was, just tightening it down a little bit. And I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. And so I'm pounding my pillow. Then I said, well, okay, just run with it. And I said, so were you not given a voice? Did you not get to talk about it? Was it just pushed aside? I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to deal with you. Stay in your room, or, whatever the situation was. I can't quite remember what it was, but I was able to nail it. And it's been very, very fascinating to watch my verbal, I'm going to call it verbal intercourse, not getting upset. I felt a real dynamic shift that evening. I had a business development event from 5:30 to 7, and I literally picked up 9 leads that evening. It was the most amazing. It was just this level of transformation that went on that, as Dr. Catherine was saying earlier, freed me up in terms of that ability to let go and to feel as if what I was saying was enough at that point in time, that was direct enough to be able to, from my Popple, delivered them over to my CRM. I've already made contact with people. I had another event on Sunday in Los Gatos outside the Silicon Valley. Beautiful. It was a wine tasting, and the guys, there were a couple girls, they were all up there smoking cigars and doing their thing. And I was talking to these AI guys. It's like AI or die. And we're having that very in-depth. And again, there I felt this freedom of being able of a deeper level of communication. So I walked away from that event with 3 or 4 names. And we've already made contact together, scheduling up for, what have you. So what I'm finding is that yet through this level of the student creating a bit of noise in his questioning and even in his whininess, I'm able to listen at a deeper level to the guru, being able to let go and being able to pinpoint, and then being able to get into and having access to some, whatever the issue or whatever the topic might be, and being able to get down and get into that topic, but dealing with, are we responsible truly for this is asking a rhetorical question, we're responsible for our anger. We're responsible for how we react. We are responsible. It is innate, and it's not because and then we can change. And so that ability to be able to just sit with it and say to yourself, you can change. You can. This is not some mystery that's, like some orb that is floating around the room that you just can't quite get your hands on. You can get your hands on these things and you can deal with them, and you can be able to metastasize it and then integrate it and be able to deal really effectively. And I'm finding, the guru, I would actually love to sit and have, late night, midnight, early morning coffee with the guy and be able to discuss some of these things. Not that I'm, a big psychologist, and dealing with, Adlerism, um, I mean, I kind of put the scientific piece a little bit to the side, but just dealing at a very practical processing aspect, that's really, really helped. So I'm finding it fascinating to have this healthy tension and then be able to do the work at the same time. So,
Awesome stuff. Well, Lola, welcome back. Konnichiwa. Hopefully, Japan was everything fantastic. Another quick follow-up, Justin. I did honestly believe when he sent a message yesterday, Crystal made a reel that I had not seen. Follow-up, Justin. I honestly thought she got pulled over. So there, again, if you she's some, anyways, you'll have to see that one there. But no, with this book itself. I am finding I am so glad have the Audible to listen along with the book on this one. I think this would be damn near impossible to get anything out of it if I was just doing the reading. Like this is when I think the Audible enhances this so much more. Just because you can truly hear the conversation between the two different individuals as it's going. I find this has been one of the hardest books for me to actually retain something. In the moment when I'm reading it, it's like, okay, it makes sense and it's going. And then I'm like, all right, what did I just do? Like it's a very interesting read from that. I mean, there's certain books that we've read and I go through, and I mean, even still to this day, like think back of like the Green Lights one from 4 years ago. I look back because it's already 4 years. There's so many distinct things that I remember out of that book that like I read this one and 15 minutes later, I'm like, what exactly was it? Like it's a very hard one for me to grasp. And so like I finished my reading last night and then as Crystal was finishing up this morning, I sat down and was reading and listening along with her again and still trying to get this one to sink in. But a couple of things that really stuck out to me from this last section here was the whole idea of the separation of tasks and what what that does for yourself, like truly realizing what is within my control versus what is within somebody else's and finding that handoff point and where the freedom from that can come from. And instead of worrying as he tied it into, expectations of others and what they have of you, and are you just living a life trying to please everyone else's expectations, or are you living a life of your own? And he used that Judaism, like the saying from there, something like, what is the, I'm going to botch because I don't remember it exactly, but something to the effect of like, what is the point of living everyone else's life if you're not free to live your own, something like that. I don't know. But I thought that to me made a lot of sense. Like, okay, what am I truly doing for me versus what am I doing because this is what society thinks I should be doing? And so that was an interesting, thought that I had going through there. I think if I were to sum this whole book up so far to this point, the biggest takeaways I've got is changing my perspective of not things are cause and effect. And his example of, his dad hit him. So there's cause and effect and where that was and how he changed it. And basically it comes down to everything is a choice. It's no longer a cause and effect. Everything is a choice on how you choose to internalize and how you choose to then move forward and move on with it. And like you said in the first section last week, we was talking about the past doesn't matter because it's what your choice is right now today on how you're going to respond and how you're going to move forward and how you choose to carry yourself. And so, I find it a fascinating read, and I wish I understood a little better. My squirrel brain, every time he says the Alderian, I always think like I go to some like what Star Wars planet is this? Like it's just that's what's going on in my head when I'm writing read this. So that's part of the reason why it's not sinking in. Like it sounds awesome. Let's go visit Alderion. Um, like so no, overall, I did also like when he was talking about that Alexander the Great and the is it
Guardian.
Gordian knot? Because I've heard that, before of just how nobody had been able to untie this knot. And he takes an entirely different approach to it, which was to take the sword and sever the knot. And while it wasn't done in the traditional sense that everyone thought it might have should have been unraveled. No, he took an approach and he got the knot undone with a sword. He sliced it. It's done. It's over. And in one fell swoop, he has become the ruler of East Asia or West Asia or whatever that was. It's so I think of that of how many different things in my own life am I trying to do of what would society think is the right way to approach something? And am I actually doing it right? Or what is an expectation that a husband and a wife should have? What goofy thing, or what is it as a boss or an employer, or in any of my, like, am I doing things just because that's how society thinks it should be? Or should I just sever those and do it the way that I think, like take my choice back? And, it's going to piss some people off, but being okay with that, not trying to piss them off intentionally, but just knowing that I've changed my approach and this is how we're going to do. So I knew it. Like it's a fascinating read. I'm all over the place with it because I wish I truly understood it better. But I did really like at the very end of this section here. Oh, just kind of the feel good moment there when he's talking about, well, how did your relationship with your dad go? And he's like, well, at the end of it there, when we were caretaker, and the first time I heard thank you, it was I was able to bring the horse to water, and I think he finally drank. Just because he took the choice to not let the cause and effect of his childhood and in the moment. And I thought that was just a very good ending to this section here. So, anyways, those are my takeaways from this goofy book.
Jump in.
You could also go to Algeria, which is a
Yeah,
country that
there you
played
go.
against Argentina yesterday. My daughter was asking, like, where is Algeria? So there you go. It's a country I can't think, Africa. We had to look it up with my daughter because she was like, where the heck is that country? So you can go there too.
And you do it on an X-Wing? No.
No.
Um, Ron, I agree with you when you were saying like the young kid is just over the top, frustrating.
It reminds me of your younger sister.
Not even close. I don't even know if she'd be having a
Good. Awesome.
conversation with a mentor. Um, from the standpoint of, I think the purpose of that when probably writing this book is to kind of dumb it down to like layman's terms to help us really intake this information. But I think it dumped it down to a level of like, okay, I'm just irritated that you keep jumping to this like massive, like, I'm gonna hit you like reaction that really bothers me, especially when I'm listening to it. And that's really what I've been doing is listening to it in the car. So I found that this book is definitely one that needs to be studied a little more through the reading, and that's going to result in my very basic takeaways for this week. Um, and also because my brain is being infected by these allergies and I can't think straight. But I really thought a lot about the chapter where he was talking about the desire for recognition makes you unfree. And he just talked about it where he says, it is true that there is no person who wishes to be disliked, but look at it this way. What should one do to not be disliked by anyone? There is only one answer, right? And it's to constantly gauge other people's feelings while swearing loyalty to all of them. And that's that prison, right? To be unfree, right? You're in these chains in this prison of other people's feelings, and it made me immediately think of the people pleaser in all of us. That I think to a massive degree, every single one of us in here, whether it's a passing or a current thing, we're all people pleasers. So in this essence, we're all of us are unfree to this concept, and I just kind of thought about it more and more of just like, oh man, how many times am I like, oh, I'm just a people pleaser. Oh, I just want to make sure this is good. In reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, like I am keeping these chains on myself to be unfree. I don't, at the end of the day, I tell myself I don't care if somebody doesn't truly like me, but I'm not acting as if that's the case through my actions of people pleasing. And so it's just again, it's a very interesting book with the theology. I keep going back to I definitely like the premise of this is not the Freudian way of if then. It is based off of choice, right? We have the choice on our actions, our behaviors, our reactions, how we uh yeah, our actions in general. And so I truly like that because I do believe that that's part of my core values of, how you react is a choice, how you act, how you choose to speak, all of that is a choice. You know, there's this whole trauma generation of I'm acting this way or I'm living this way or I'm stuck in this mode because of past trauma. We all have it. It's just a choice of how you choose, you know, what you choose to do with it. It's not an if then. And so I do really like that concept from this book because I feel a little validated and just my way of life, I think. Um, but it's definitely one that needs to be studied and beyond just listening to in your car while you're driving. Because there's like Chris said, there's things that like you're hearing and you're like, oh wait, I need to go back. What did I just listen to? I totally understood it and was like, yeah, oh, I totally agree. But then you go back and you're like, wait, what was that? So this is definitely a study book. Unfortunately, my life lately has only allowed me to really listen to it, you know, on Audible while being busy. So I'm sure there's a lot more I could take away from it, but I think, you know, the underlying concepts, I truly appreciate this way of thinking. Um, but yeah, that's my takeaway.
And you just remind me of one other one that I had out of there. It was just the freeing aspect of how free you can get when you quit worrying about other people's problems. And literally, ironically, last night her mom was in town for the last few days. And just before going to the airport, like they had just gotten back, I was reading on the couch, and her mom used to be part of the book club. She goes, "Oh, what book are you reading now?" and whatever. And I just like right at we were telling her a little about it, and then as she leaves, and I continued reading, and it was the very next section that I was reading was talking about worrying about other people's problems and taking that on and just the discomfort and just frustrations that that can bring. And her mom literally just got done telling us a story about how she got a coupon in the mail for a $50 oil change. And so she was so excited and she was going to take her car in and then she was going to take her other two adult daughters, which again, by the way, I'm just like, come on. Like one's 24, the other's 32, taking both of their cars in to do something nice and pay for their oil change. Great, sweet, nice. But then all these other problems that came from it because of emissions testing and a prior accident and motor damage and like, and she's just getting so worked up and worried about these things that I'm like, these aren't your cars, these aren't your problems. But you know, as a mom, like she's just holding on to that. And it's just, I think that was something where I wanted to be like, hold on, Crystal, turn back around. I got to tell your mom this really quick. Like, just quit worrying about other people's problems.
Yeah.
Live your life. You have your own stuff that you're going to be worrying about and dealing with, and take care of that. And that is ultimately a choice, and it's her choice to worry about the others. But I just thought that piece itself of quit worrying about other people's problems. There's nothing you can really do about it until they choose they want to make their own choice to fix the situation. So why burn up your valuable energy on that? So that was one other thing that I did enjoy. I thought was very topical and just how that all timed out last night.
But it's so hard to do it. Again, as my 19-year-old just walked out and I had like a conversation to have with her from something that happened last night that she was going to go somewhere, but she didn't, and she ended up somewhere else. And trust in my family, it's a huge thing. And so it's so hard. Like when, Shannon brought up what was it he talked about? Like when it's not your problem, but he called it something or it has come out of my head. What did you say, Shannon, when it's did you other people's problem, but he had a name for it. I don't remember. Task, right. When it's not your tasks. I'm like, couldn't think. I was totally there. Like it has been really hard for me as a mom to deal with a college kid and her coming home this summer. And like, okay, you feel like you can do whatever the heck you want, and I get it. I know that when you're away you do, but when you're here, this is my house and you don't. And if I don't see it, maybe I don't care, but if I'm seeing it, I do care. It's not my task, but I can it's hard. It's so hard to not worry. I am there. I am your mother-in-law. I am like, let me take your car in for it, and I shouldn't. But that's me sometimes.
You know what, Dr. Catherine, when I was reading that, I think it's all cultural a lot and how we were raised, right? And so a lot of what, I don't have a relationship with my father, because of some things that happened and so it made me think a lot about like writing him a letter and kind of just putting things out there that I've never expressed before, right? And but it's not my problem. And when I think about like what you're saying about your kids, like we there's so much love. I mean, philosophy is great, but like our number one job from the day that they were born was to protect them. And really kind of what you're doing is it is protection, but also in my head, I was thinking it's also control, right? Because we want the best for them. We want to keep them safe. And it's like, and they're adults. Like she's in college, she's 18, she's gonna have to make the decisions. And you still have that motherly, I want to protect you, I want to make sure that I shield you. And you're never gonna be able to do that because when she's off at college, she's gonna do whatever she wants. And she's at home, she feels like I can do whatever I want. So it's really what I call a skull, Fuck. I mean, because it's like, like all of this is it's strange and against how I was raised and how I think about raising my kids. But then when you really, really think about it, like I went to the gym after I finished this morning, and it's very freeing. Um, to be able to think like this if you can get to that point, but you're always going to kind of go back to where you were. And I think about what you said, Crystal, like you are in the people pleasing business. Like that is your job, like, to make sure that whoever you're doing the events for is happy, the people that are at the event are happy. Like, so it's really hard when you have a job like you to like, take these concepts because really people are paying you for a people pleasing experience, so it's kind of different because it's really kind of an expectation versus like the people in your everyday life. It's like, listen, I get paid to please people, but other people don't pay me to please them, right? And so it's basically like making that switch because your business won't thrive if you're not pleasing people, so it's like, they didn't really take the business aspect of it and the personal aspect of it. This is more of a personal thing. But if you think about the business side, anybody that owns a business, we kind of got to please people, right? If we don't please people, we don't have a business, and people will go somewhere else that they can get better service, get better, product, whatever it is. So it's just the book is very, very, very interesting, and for me, it's very, very freeing. And I love the parent part. Like I had a discussion with my wife this morning, and you know, for me, I feel like from born to 12 it's my job to guide them. If they don't want to do the work, if she doesn't want to read, like I got to explain why it's important, right? If I'm just at 7 years old, I'm like, well, if you don't want to read, you're just going to get bad grades. Screw it. Like it's your task. It's not my task. Like I just feel like, you got it. Some of the stuff in the book, I feel like you got to use common sense because they're having a conversation, on certain ages and being a parent. But my son that's 22, I was telling my wife today, I'm always giving him my opinion when he doesn't ask for it. And she's like, but he'll never ask for it. And I was like, I should never give it because he's not asking me for my opinion. If he asks me for it, then I should give it to him. But even when I give it to him, if he's not asking for it, he's not listening, right? He doesn't care about my opinion. He's like, wah, 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 wah. Like, and so it's like, why am I expelling that energy when he doesn't ask me for it? And so I made a decision today, like, because then what happens is I get frustrated because I'm like, he's hard headed. He's not hard headed. He just doesn't want my opinion. Like he's got it, and really I should let him have it because the way he's gonna learn is to mess up, and then when he messes up, come back and say, what would you have done, or how should I handle it next time? And that's really the way. And my relationship with him is probably going to be way better because I'm now not controlling because it seems controlling to him when I'm telling him, well, I think you should do this and you should say that. And this is, I think you should trim your beard because I feel like it's more professional and you might get promoted at work. And like, like if you're taking care of yourself, like you're going to excel through the right, so I'm giving him all this information. And he's looking at me like my beard's fine. They don't give a shit about my beard. Right.
Wow, I
And that
didn't know
all I'm
this was
doing is
going to be a
annoying him.
therapy session on parenting. I love this.
Yes. So anyway, I mean, that's
So
what I'm
neat.
getting from this book, right? I mean, I think it's a gift. It's going to be a gift to my kids, and it's going to be a gift to my son. It's going to be a gift to my wife, because, when she is, going through whatever, like that's her, that's not me. And I make it about me, so I feel like this book has allowed me to be free. Now, why we go back, probably we're all going to go back to what we are used to in our personalities, but, um, I love the book. I love where it's headed, and I love how he finally brought the courage to be disliked and this freeing part in, the very end. It's like, okay, here, we tied a little bow. And now after the bow's tied, I think he's going to give some specifics in the next, 75 pages of the book on exactly how to implement and execute it. So I love the book. I feel like it's taught me a lot. Um, Caring what other people think, man, is so hard to not care what other people think. It's just such a difficult thing because I mean, think about it. I mean, when you're 2 years old, your kids are like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. They want this, they give you a piece of art, A at school, and then teachers are trying to impress teachers, they're trying to impress coaches, they're trying to impress, other kids, and other kids are making fun of them. And it's like from birth, it's all about what other people think, right? And so I feel like, this could be taught in schools at the age of 7 or 8 years old, this philosophy, like I feel like we would be living in a completely different world than we live in now. But we're not taught that. We're taught be quiet, don't talk. You're going to not get stars on the board if you're not good in class today, so you're always trying to impress people in all aspects of life. So it's good. I think it's a really, really good book. I think I love it more and more, and um, I can't wait to finish it. And I would like to read more books like this. I like this kind of books where, because I mean, it's such an old philosophy. Like I said last week, that pertains to our world today, because people and humans have always been the same. Even Alexander the Great. Like I mean, all the way back there, all those years before Jesus, still people interacted and did the same thing. Alexander the Great just didn't care what people think. He just cut the freaking knot. He was like, most people were trying to figure out how to undo this complicated knot. And he was like, I'm taking this shit. Bop. I don't care what anybody thinks. And then he ruled the whole, East and Russia and China and all that other stuff. So it's just like, it's very interesting when you actually just care about yourself. And I think you can be a lot more successful if you just do things for you versus doing things for other people. So great book. Glad I'm on this journey with you guys so much.
I want to add one more thing really quick before the next person. I know I talked a lot, but when he talked about anger, I know Jay, you were talking about controlling and giving your opinion to your son, and that's what I feel like I do. But then he turned to when he was saying that anger is just that you don't know how to communicate and that you're just waiting for the other person to like, so you can then like talk louder and like tell them, no, no, it is this way. Like this is how and that's how it's taught me. And trust me, it takes a lot out of this type A crazy personality. Like I want to make sure that it's my job as a mom, make sure that she's perfect. No, it's not, but in my head. So I love that. I love that whole anger thing. And it's right. It teaches us to back off and there's other ways to talk.
Yeah,
All right.
I love it. And here's why I love book club as well too, because both Jay and Kat, both of what you just said reminded me of this one other line in here, and this was the on page 136, and it was talking about, you know, the relationship between a mother and a child, but I'm thinking of it same thing of all right, with me and my employees. But the busy mother, it is certainly faster for them to tie and wait for than what wait for him to do it himself. But that is an intervention, and it is taking the child's task away from him. And as a result of the repeated intervention, the child will cease to learn anything and will lose the courage to face his life tasks. And as Adler says, children who have not been taught to confront challenges will try to avoid all challenges. And I think of that just it's such you want to be able to save. You want put your hero cape on and go rescue it, but it doesn't teach anything, or it does teach them. It teaches them to avoid it. That you're always going to be there. You're always going to solve it. Like why do I even want to address a challenge? Why do I? Somebody else will take care of it. And it's like no, it doesn't create actual critical thinking and problem solving skills. And so I think guys you were talking remind me of that section there, and it was just like yes, that was one of the takeaways I did want to share today from that one. So again, that's why I love book club. It reminds me of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny that part. My little one, the 5 year old. She's not a baby. She's five. And my wife still treats her like she's a baby, because it's her last baby. And I've been teaching her how to get undressed and dressed. And so she likes when her mom changes her because her mom does everything for her and gets her dressed, and she gets frustrated with me because I'm like, no, no, you got to learn how to dress, or she'll get lazy and not want to eat, and she'll be like, feed me, and I'm like, no, you can feed you yourself. Like you're 5 years old. You know exactly how to pick the spoon up. You know how to cut things. You know how to feed yourself. And it's just funny because, you know, I see, when he said that, I saw that in Sky. Like Luna wants to do everything herself. She doesn't want us to do anything. You know, she's very independent. And now Sky, because we've been treating her like a baby, you know, and changing her and doing that because, you know, she's still the baby of the household, right? And she's still cute and she's still super manipulative and you know, like it's hard to say no to her. But it's like when I saw that, I was like, okay, you know, it's time. We got to say, boom, you got to take care of it because, like you said, I mean, like you said, Chris, then they're gonna not do it, and they're gonna just always be dependent on you to do it, or you know. And I don't want her to do that in school. I don't want her to do that in sports. I don't want her to do that in ballet. Like you need to figure out how to do it so that you know it's not my problem because you're giving them that tool not to depend on you. But very interesting. All this stuff is very interesting. Stuff that you don't think about, you know?
Yeah, it,
Shannon, is that one of your kids' babies? Because
Yeah,
that's
she's
like
a grandma. She's a grandma of
I
10.
that's
Yeah,
crazy. And
that,
I just don't
yeah.
remember you being pregnant. So I was just like
Or grandma.
that looks that looks like
No,
oh
you know what?
I
That
didn't
is
think
my,
grandma. I was just like maybe she adopted a baby. Like
no,
I
no,
did
you
not
know what? That is my newest grandson. You dismissed me showing him off. You weren't looking, but
oh I was
yeah,
looking, I saw
She
him.
was
He was
letting
super
us
cute.
smell him.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's my 10th
Ten?
grandchild, number 10. Yeah,
Yeah, Jay, 10.
You have
10.
yeah.
10
Look
grandkids?
at her.
Holy
I have
crap.
10 grandchildren. Let me stand up. No.
Yeah, girl. Yeah.
Yes!
Wow.
Yeah,
10.
yeah, it's number 10. Yeah,
I
thanks.
thought I have two. I thought I had a lot. I thought that was a lot
No. No, you
for
don't,
my
Jay.
age.
No.
No, no, thanks,
10
guys.
grandkids.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go next. I'll go next. On a total sidebar, you do look amazing, Shannon. And Jay, I've seen your parenting, and I at the in Destin, I was like, do you say that to your kids like for real? Or are you just doing it because we're all around you? Because like what you said, it's like so empowering. He was giving his daughter a choice of like, are you whatever. It was just like my mind was blown. I'm like, I've never had that kind of parenting ever. You're amazing, Jay. Okay,
Thank
so this
you.
book, I was triggered by your comment to me last time saying, Arlene, you're the youth. And I'm like, oh, I better start reading the book because what's she talking about? And then I started reading the book and I'm like, I'm so the youth. I'm literally, as I'm reading the book, I can hear it coming out of my head going, that's literally almost borderline verbatim, I would say what the youth is saying. So Ron, I am that person. Crystal, I am that person. So I'm slightly like triggered, right? Slightly triggered, but it's good. It's all good. So the book, I actually had, when I started reading it, was talking about the different philosophers like the Freud and the Jung and this guy Adler, who's no one's heard of, by the way, really. So, and I've taken philosophy, psychology in college, 100 level, but it's like, you know, I feel I'm more of an expert on people as a hairdresser, color specialist, when I'm with people for 2 to 5 hours. But the thing is, so I have 5 points. So the part where he says the past shapes us, this is the Jungian. So I'm very Carl Jungian, right? So I just noticed there is a very big difference because Adler's totally not that way. So I really do believe the past does shape us, and brain science does back it up irrefutably. That from, like Jay was talking about, from 0 to 7, the mindset of a child is actually formed. So when you're 0 to 7 as a child, you don't have that choice, especially if you're in an abusive household, like some people. So there's that. And then there's that video, I don't know if you guys have seen it, where it's like this coach and he's in the field and he's doing this high school class thing, and he basically takes people, all the kids to the center line, and then he basically says, step 2 steps back if you are colored. Step two steps forward if you're white. Step 2, that thing. And then that place where people start out is very interesting because, you know, it's kind of like a world where it's kind of developed for a certain skin color, like let's just say, to a certain degree, right? So when you are living the life of somebody who has a lot of trauma, and I'm not kidding when I say this, and or visual minority and all this kind of stuff, there's different places of privilege that people come from. And so when it comes to, when I was reading the book, especially in the beginning, it's extremely triggering because it's completely dismissive and discounting for people who have it. And the past does shape, like I said, it's in brain science, and of course you guys know I'm ADHD, And there's things that I'm discovering, like, oh, like in philosophy, psychiatrist world or whatever, there's like something called CPTSD, not just PTSD. The complex PTSD, if you guys heard of that, versus PTSD, that's from childhood in brain science, right? And then there's rejection sensitivity disorder. And then there's oppositional defiance, which talks about like why you get so angry. It's a subconscious reaction to the behavioral patterns that you've had in the past. So I just found that like the Adler guy and this philosopher was like just so like kind of borderline pompous to speak in that way, to not put everyone in a blanket covering. And then so again, so Jung, he basically says unconscious does matter. So like the people pleasing, fear of rejection, all that stuff that we all clearly have to a certain degree. But and then he talks about trauma responses are like survival adaptations. They're not excuses. Like I definitely am working on it. It's like the hypervigilance, perfectionism. I agree with the Adler in that it's a choice. Like everything is choice at the end of the day, but you need to be aware of it first before you can make that choice. So when you're a child, you don't have that choice. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? And then compassion. I like how he basically talked about courage and responsibility, because at this point now, when you're in a state of awareness, it's like, oh yeah, now it's an excuse if I keep dwelling on it, right? So that's the healing journey for some. And then at the end of the day, my fifth point was like that both perspectives can actually coexist, because they do. Like the brain research that's been happening really, especially in the last 5, 6 years, 10 years even, it's all new, and it actually does counter what he says in the book, and it's sort of more on the line of like the Jungian thing. So I'm on Team Jung, but I also agree with Adler, and I also agree with Chris that it's like a different planet kind of belief, which is kind of funny. That he basically says like, what are you going to choose now? Like now that you know, kind of thing. So does that make sense? Like my whole like, I think that both questions matter. Like how did you become this way? That's the journey that I've been on. Like why am I so hyper reactionary? But then it's like, well, you have a choice now because you're aware. So I hope that makes sense I tried to make it more not so notes everywhere, Jay.
Arlene, I love when I was reading the book, the thing that I thought about you, um, like I said last week, but as I read the book, I think about you even more. Even though you have these things in your past that have happened, somehow you've been able to get to the point to be what I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, is the true you. And I think what I mean by that is, you know, you're quirky, but you embrace it. And when people say things about it, you also admit it and embrace it, where most people would be kind of defensive and on guard and being like, where you kind of make fun of yourself and be like, yeah, I am that. And you've accepted that. And I feel like I admire that about you a lot, because when people say things like that, for me, it was offensive listening to someone say that about you in the house, and like, oh, like with that, I forget what the statement was about it. And I was offended because, one, I like you and I think you're a cool person, and I love your personality, right? And kind of what he talks about in the book is not everyone's going to like you, right? No matter what you do, you cannot please everyone, and there's going to be people that don't like you for stupid reasons, and it doesn't matter. And I think that's the main purpose of this book, is have the courage to be disliked, because not everyone's going to like you. And if you let those people that like you affect you, then that's your problem. It's not their problem. And so that's what I like about you, because I mean, I think majority of people are going to like that about you, Arlene, and actually wish they could be like you and embrace themselves and not care what other people think. And the fact that you're just you with my kids, you were you in the house, you were you with my wife, you were you with me, you were you with everyone around. You were just kind of this fun, and even on the book club, right? You don't apologize for being these things. And I think if more people were like that and they didn't apologize and try to be accepted by everyone, I think more people would accept you, and also you would live in peace. And so that's when I was reading this book, that's what I thought about you, is how you embrace who you are. And however you've gotten to that journey, I think it's a great, I mean, you might not agree with everything in the book, but however you've gotten to be the place that you've gotten, and maybe in private, it's something that you think about and annoys you, but I would tell you you should not allow it because I think you're an amazing human being, and I think your personality makes people be able to individualize and be who they want to be or who they can be. So that's what I was when I thought about when I was reading the book.
Wow, thanks, Jay. I honestly, it's like it's interesting because, and I'm also grateful for the book club. So I can't thank you enough, Jay, for keeping this, and Chris, you guys, all you guys keeping it going. But I was going to actually add a really interesting sort of realistic thing that happened to me yesterday because I volunteer next door to Legion, and I'm very active volunteer. And I actually got a letter. I actually was walking the cat, and I got the president came out from the back, and he goes, "Oh, just the person I want to speak to," and he actually had a letter for me. And he said, "We've had about 5 or 6 complaints about you." And I'm like, "I'm listening because I'm open." I know. Look at Chris's eyes. And then, and then he basically went over like certain things. Like I don't operate. It's a military organization, right? So there is protocol, there is procedure. But I'm a college dropout, and I'm a daughter of an entrepreneur, and I am ADHD too. So I don't actually operate within the confines of this organization. So when things need to be done, because I'm like an ambassador there, so people will come to me and they'll share all this stuff, and so I could collate it all, like I could collect it, and then I just take action and I do stuff. So I look like I'm a bull in a china shop because I'm trying to help everybody. But interesting with this book, it's like subconsciously, I guess it was like everybody comes from a different place, is my assessment as a 35-year hairdresser. I like to bring that up. And so I can't really take what they're saying to heart because they pretty much, when you're at a veteran location, everyone has PTSD. So you have to take an empathic sort of side to it and go, okay, he's got this, it's all good, right? Everybody, we all passionate people here. And really at the end of the day, he started it off by saying, just a caveat, everybody loves you, Arlene. It's just, you just have to like, not be so like, go over the protocol of like the, so it's like the realization, and I will share this gift with all of you, I think I did. It's an app called Ash, Ash, and it's a free counseling app, okay? I was given to me by a high-level executive, and I kind of work through, okay, what am I doing? And it's kind of like how I think somebody said that they use ChatGPT to help navigate how to behave and talk. Was that you, Lola? Anyway, and just getting to that point of like, I have to understand that I'm from an entrepreneur mindset, and this is a procedural organization, and it's like oil and water. So I do have to, Arlene, just, if you want to say something, just calm the F down and just let them say what they have to say. And, you know, it was just really interesting. And by the end of it, he said, I was dreading this, sharing this letter with you for weeks, Arlene, dreading it. And it's really been like the best kind of thing to go over with you, because I normally my letters don't go over very well. So thank you for having this respectful dialogue. I was like, thank you for having respectful dialogue and all that kind of stuff. And I was able to address the various situations. And then he actually got to see and actually counter some of the things that people said, because they were based on assumptions that people had about me and the conversations I had. So that was really interesting. So that was part of the book club influence of like, you know what? It's all good. We got this, right? But thank you, Jay, for your kind words. I respect you so deeply. I borderline, you know, everybody in this book club. I love the shares.
You're awesome.
You're awesome.
Hey, Crystal, I'm going to send you guys a Zoom link for the meeting after this right now. Okay. I got to go because I got to share a link. And I'm not sure who else. But we usually only go to 145, but I love that it goes to 2. I love that this book is engaging conversation like this. It's awesome. So I will see you guys next week. Thank you guys for all sharing. And Rhonda, I'm not sure if you got to share or not. If you didn't,
No, not today, I guess. Okay.
oh,
We'll
but
save
you
it
know
then.
what? You share first next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Thanks
Um,
all.
is there anything,
Bye-bye.
Justin, that they have to know about the poll or anything like that?
So are
Not yet.
we finishing the book? Sorry, I have audiobooks, so I don't know where we're reading.
No,
What's it?
it's got 270 pages, and I don't think it has any stuff. So I think it's 2 more weeks, I would say. We'll go to 225, and then we'll finish at
Okay.
we'll have 50 pages next week.
Can you let me know, Justin, what 225, what chapter it is, so I can kind of know?
I got you.
I
Thanks.
could tell you what would you say what 225 is?
What chapter is it is? So an
Uh,
audiobook, I know like how far to go.
a chapter you're going to go to work. A workaholism is a life lie. and
Okay.
it's chapter. It doesn't say. I don't know if they have chapter numbers,
The,
but
the
workaholism is a
last
life.
the last
Okay.
one you'll actually listen to will be Young People Walk Ahead of Adults.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when it gets to workaholism, that'll start the last
Got
week.
it. Okay. Thank
Shannon, that's
you.
Jay at the last book club.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, sorry.
he
Thank
just
you.
was just the stinker. No, just thinking so hard.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Have a good
Nice
day,
to
guys.
see
dude.
you, Lola. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.